Jurassic Park, a movie both kids and adults alike have enjoyed since its release in 1993. Even though we all know that we've skipped this lunch scene at some point in our lives, for some reason we still come back over and over again to rewatch psychological child abuse, child abandonment, and children nearly being eaten alive by a giant hungry reptile, only to have them survive, be electrocuted, and hunted by even more hungry and vicious reptiles. I'm starting to see why children might be traumatized by this movie, as if the Outback Hunter being outsmarted in his own game wasn't enough.
Clever girl.
With that being said, this is a phenomenal movie that has forever gotten children and adults to fantasize about having living dinosaurs in our world today, and made the topic of dinosaurs current even nearly 30 years later. But as usual, there was one aspect of the movie, normally overlooked and forgotten in most movies, that we're going to review and analyze. That is the opening scene to the movie. Is the intro interesting enough to pull us right into what the rest of the movie has to offer? Or is it so underwhelming that we have little excitement for what is to come? Well, today we're going to find out. As usual, we'll be looking into 3 specific criteria to make this determination. Those 3 criteria are the music, how original the intro is, and whether or not the opening scene is captivating as a whole. We will give each of these criteria a score out of 10, then take the average of the scores to come up with a final total score of the opening scene. And as always, if you have not seen the opening scene to Jurassic Park yet, please go check it out first, and then hop back on over here for this full analysis. Let's begin. First off, the music. After watching the opening scene several times over again, it seemed that there were 3 different phases of music here. Phase 1 is before the scene even starts, when we hear an eerie choir and a thud of a bass drum, instilling a feeling of uncertainty, mystery, and fear in us. Immediately, we are put on the edge of our seats, both not wanting and wanting to see what comes next. You can tell this music is from the legendary and brilliant John Williams because he keeps the music here simple but effective. As the scene finally opens up, we come to phase 2. We still hear some faint music of uncertainty and mystery, but it's not as in your face about it. It's more of just filler music to aid in holding onto our attention. Then finally, as the raptor makes her move to attack the gatekeeper, we move into phase 3 where the music intensifies. Without the music on this scene, we wouldn't be able to feel how horrific of an event this is. Yes, we would still understand that things are going south quick, but not as powerfully. The music choice is excellent here, but phase 2 and maybe even a bit of phase 3 is a bit generic. Phase 1 is easily a 10 out of 10, but beyond that, the music does fall a bit short in pulling our attention in and conveying to us certain feelings. Overall though, John Williams does an excellent job with the music here and we have to give him credit for it. Therefore, the score we would have to give for music here would be 8 out of 10. Excellent music overall, but a bit forgetful and generic at times. Still a respectable score. Now, moving on to the originality. Immediately, high marks have to be given because I'm pretty sure Jurassic Park was and still is the only movie to open up with a raptor attack. If it's not the only one anymore, then it was definitely stolen from this movie. This entire scene revolves around the difficulty, the danger, and fear in placing a raptor in her enclosure. One would think this is a simple task, but we clearly see it isn't. When we see the park later in the movie, we remember this opening scene, which allows us to better understand how difficult every step in carrying out this process was. When it comes to Steven Spielberg though, there are a few similarities between Jaws and Jurassic Park's opening scenes. Perhaps I'll do a review of Jaws in the future, but without going into too much, you can see that they both revolve around a dangerous animal we cannot fully see, killing a human in the dead of night. Because of this, and because it is Spielberg himself who repeated his own formula, we do have to dock a few points for originality, giving us a total score of 6 out of 10. This doesn't mean that the intro isn't good by any means, just that it isn't the most original opening we've ever seen. And finally, we'll look at how captivating the opening scene is overall. Before we go into detail about how captivating the intro is, we're just going to go ahead and give it a 10 out of 10. Immediately, the phase 1 music grabs our attention during the opening credits. We see our first images of the tree shaking ever more intensely and the workers standing anxiously waiting with their guns and tasers. We as an audience are waiting just as anxiously to see what is coming through those trees. Finally, we see a forklift carrying a crate, which may be a bit disappointing at first, but as the scene progresses, we quickly understand that something extremely dangerous is in that crate. Then we hear it, our very first raptor screech that is now indistinguishable for Jurassic Park fans. At this point, we clearly know that there's a dinosaur in there, but we have no idea what kind it is or the serious threat it poses. So we keep hanging on to see. Finally, the raptor makes its strike, the crate separates from the gate, and the gatekeeper gets almost sucked into the crate within half a second. We as an audience are completely hooked at this point and cannot take our eyes off the screen, as we know this is not going to end well for the gatekeeper. Yet, we keep watching in hopes that he'll be okay. As the Outback Hunter is holding onto the gatekeeper to save his life, he realizes the tasers are not doing any good and that this raptor must be killed. Then the scene fades out as we hear the words, For an opening scene, it doesn't get much more intense and captivating than this. From the Phase 1 music all the way to the shoot her, we are hooked the entire time. The only knock we could give for this opening is that when we see a simple forklift coming with a crate through the trees, it's slightly disappointing. This is a movie about dinosaurs after all, so we probably are expecting something a bit more interesting. Although in classic Spielberg fashion, he holds off showing us everything to keep us wanting more. This is an intentional design to actually captivate us even more as we want to know what is inside that crate. For that reason, we're not docking any points as it seems to work in its favor. Perhaps one of the most captivating, if not the most captivating opening scene for a movie, which is why we must give it a perfect score of 10 out of 10 for captivating. So, after reviewing and analyzing the intro based off of these three criteria, we come up with a total average score of 8 out of 10, a very respectable score for an opening scene. Now if you enjoyed this review, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more similar content. Or if you disagreed with any of my analysis, let me know in the comments why, and go ahead and leave a dislike if you really disagreed. Anyways, thanks for stopping by for another SMEG review.